Recapped here. Today I'm going to show you a 2020 South Korean zombie film called Alive. Spoilers ahead, watch out and take care. The film revolves around a video game live streamer's struggle for survival as he is forced to stay alone at his apartment in Seoul during a zombie apocalypse. Before everything fell apart, the protagonist, Jun-woo, is a tech-savvy PC gamer who lives with his parents in an apartment complex in Seoul. In South Korea, in modern times, things started normal for Jun-woo. He got up, cleaned up a bit, and then started to play video games. He sees a note from his mother informing him that the whole family has left and instructed him to get groceries later as there's little food left in the pantry. But when he decided to turn on the TV, he discovers that something was happening outside. He sees many violent behaviors and assaults that have already been reported. As he watches the news, he hears commotions from outside and sees people running and screaming, while some people were violently biting and scratching one another. When he opens the door to the hallway, a neighbor barges in. The man begs to stay, but Jun-woo refuses and grabs a knife, pointing it at him and asking him to leave. The neighbor's eyes gradually start bleeding, which indicates that he has become infected. He succumbs to infection and attacks Jun-woo. Jun-woo pushes him back out and locks the door. He then receives messages from his parents telling him they are safe, but he can't contact them as the reception has gone down. From the beginning, he tells himself that he will survive and organizes his food, insulates himself indoors, and even drinks some of his dad's fancy booze. Jun-woo barricades his front door with the fridge and decides to upload his location on social media, hoping that someone might see it and come rescue him. His neighborhood becomes overrun with infection. Though the emergency power stays on, Jun-woo gradually loses access to phone networks, the internet, and running water. Another infected man breaks into the apartment, knocking over the fridge, destroying and infecting the food inside. Jun-woo tricks him into falling off the balcony. He learns from the news that some infected have still managed to retain some kind of intelligence. Some are still able to remember and do simple tasks, such as opening doors, and some are even reported remembering skills acquired from their profession. 2 weeks pass and Jun-woo walks around drunk on rum, and he hallucinates about his parents and sister due to hunger and thirst. He snaps out of his daze and breaks down crying and soon checks his phone. His phone network is restored momentarily. He receives a voicemail from his family recording their last moments. In the message, it plays that they are all hiding out in his father's office, but his mother's voice soon changed to screaming and crying. He is distraught as he listens to his family get eaten alive and die at the hands of the infected. Not knowing what to do, Jun-woo grabs a golf club and heads into the hallway full of infected. He tries to beat and clobber as many of them as he can while cursing and shouting at them. Jun-woo goes into depression and attempts suicide, but manages to free himself when he sees a laser pointer's light moving around his apartment. Kim Yoo-bin, a survivor living in the apartment building opposite his, signals to him. An infected firefighter climbs up a cable that Yoo-bin had tied to a table when she was attempting to set up the zip line. The table is pulled across her apartment and knocks her out. Despite Jun-woo's distractions, the infected man reaches Yoo-bin's balcony, but falls to his death when she wakes up and cuts off his hand. Jun-woo steals food, clothing, and walkie-talkies from his neighbor's unit and sends a walkie-talkie to Yoo-bin, which they use to maintain communication. The two talk and bond. The development of the script leads to a blossoming relationship between Jun-woo and Yoo-bin. Yoo-bin also reveals that she had also attempted suicide with a broken noose shown hanging from her ceiling. The infected hordes become agitated, and Yoo-bin accidentally knocks over a shelf. A group converges at her door, but Jun-woo distracts them by calling the unit adjacent to hers with the apartment complex's phone system. Jun-woo and Yoo-bin make a plan to settle down at the former's apartment floor, which was considered to be abandoned. The pair gear up, rappel from their balconies, and fight their way to the 8th floor of Jun-woo's apartment, thinking no one lives on that floor. An infected man sees them and summons others infected. However, after making their way to the floor after killing a bunch of zombies, the duo realizes that the apartment floor is not abandoned but is infested with zombies. As the ferocious zombies attack the duo, they are rescued by an older who emerges from the last suite on the floor and saves them while stating that a rescue team is on their way to save all of them. He tells them that he heard talks of a rescue team over the radio and that they'll be rescued soon. Those who are familiar with the zombie thriller genre would not take a second to guess that the man posing to help the duo is not worth trusting, and it happens. In the stranger's home, the pair accepts his food and water. As they eat, Yoo-bin sees a picture of a couple and their child. She also sees milk bottles but doesn't see any sign of a child. She asks the man where his kid is, but the man says he doesn't have one. Ju-woo falls asleep from drugs in the food, and Yu-bin realizes that they have been drugged, and the man isn't who he says he is. He drugs both of them and drags a weakened Yu-bin to a room where his zombie wife is waiting for her meal. He thanks them for coming and says that his wife has been starving for days. Ju-woo wakes up and points a gun at the man, threatening to shoot him if he doesn't let Yu-bin go. Jun-woo hears screaming inside the room, which suddenly stopped, and he assumed the worst. The man opens the door to check on his wife, and Yu-bin, who is portrayed as a strong character, manages to fool the zombie. She falls into him with his infected wife, whose head was covered by a piece of fabric. Yu-bin releases the infected wife on the man, and he surrenders to his wife's attack, and Yu-bin shoots them both. The gunshots attract more infected, and with no hope in sight, Yu-bin decides that killing themselves would be the best option before the horde arrives. Jun-woo complies and forces himself to aim the gun at Yu-bin. As he hesitates, they hear helicopters pass outside. The pair rush to the rooftop while chased by the infected. As they are about to be overwhelmed, an army helicopter shoots at the horde before carrying the pair to safety. As they fly out, Jun-woo gets reception and learns that a huge chunk of the metropolitan area has been infected, with an estimated 50,000 infected. He also sees that many of the survivors have posted their pictures and locations on social media similar to what he did, and that the rescue teams are making use of this information to find and save them. A voiceover by an anchor explains that wireless networks are being restored, and the military has begun rescuing survivors who made social media posts.